Same way night it go. No ceremony, no mark. Something remain without name.
Not louder, not clearer, just present.
Never stop moving. It slow down, it thin out, but it not disappear.
Some things only change distance. If you reach this far, you already know. Nothing announce, nothing finish, it just continue. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it.
Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing announce it. Nothing finish. It just continue.
Morning come, same way night dig go. No ceremony, no mark. Something remain without need.
Not louder, not clearer. Just present.
After sound pass, after light dim.
We are missionaries for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We invite you to come to church with us this Sunday.
What
We know that
travel
as
through,
you make the sacrifice to come to church, that you will be
never
blessed.
stop
We
moving.
know that
It slow down, it
We're
thin
gonna pull this
out.
car over and we're gonna frolic in one of these
But it not
fields.
disappear.
Yes, when's the last time you frolicked?
Only change distance.
All right, I love it. Bless This Mess is a new comedy that had its premiere last
If you
night
reach
right
this
here
far,
on ABC. If you missed
you
it, it's a
already
story
know.
about newlyweds who drop everything, including their jobs and overbearing mother-in-law, to make the move from big city New York to rural Nebraska in search of a simpler life. Well, Lake Bell and Dak Shepard star as those two newlyweds. And Lake joins me this morning. Hello, hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this show. Love the concept. I told you before we got started. I grew up somewhat of a city girl. I mean, I grew up here in Tampa, as city as that gets.
Yeah.
But then married into the farmer's life. My husband is a farmer, so I love that there's finally a show, a current show, I should say, about finding the
That was
simpler
made for
life.
you.
Yeah. So, and you actually
Yeah, this is
created.
you're my demographic.
Yes. So tell me how did this all come to be?
Professor of psychiatry
You know,
and
it
addiction
comes
medicine
purely
at
from
Stanford University
a
School of
very
Medicine.
earnest part in my heart that dreams to kind of
I see patients.
pick up and leave the city and like turn my phone off,
brain
own a
has
plot
been
of
hijacked
dirt,
by a
and work
world
the
of
land, you know,
endless
like
frictionless
as if I'm
pleasures.
living
I'm
in
gonna
a
show
sort
you
of
how to take it.
Instagram
In this
curated
class,
life, you
we're
know.
going to
and
learn about
obviously,
what
the reality of that. I mean, I am from
how it
Manhattan.
works,
I don't
how modern
know,
life
you know,
has
how I would
rewired
really
our
fare.
brain
I mean, I can
to make
organize
addiction more
a
common.
junk drawer
And
very well,
what
so I do
you
have some
need
skills,
to
but
find that.
you know, I
You'll
just
get a
feel like,
step-by-step
you
guide
know,
to
Liz
a
Merriweather
30-day
and I, who
dopamine
Liz
Nothing
created the show with
not
me.
TikTok.
She did New Girl.
These are science
You know,
fact
she and I
checks.
sort of
Nothing
were laughing so hard when we were creating the show
And we'll
about the
also
idea
have
of
stories
me
about
being on
how
a
we
farm.
can become
And I guess, you know,
harmless activities.
we both were sort of
How we
newlyweds
can turn
somewhat, and thinking about taking these newlyweds who are trying to, you know, operate on their best behavior, you know, in the beginning of a relationship and thrusting them into an extraordinary situation. That's compelling to us, and definitely breeding ground for comedy.
So did you have to learn much about farming? I mean, do you feel like you were able through this process to educate yourself a little bit more? Because as you said, it is not an easy life.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It was very important to us to be authentic in the farming scope of things. So we have, not only do we have farming consultants that are very much infused in our writing process and the storylines, but also our writer's room is, I'd say, first of all, it's 90% people who are representing the middle of the country. And like one Jewish guy from New York. Otherwise, it's like everyone else is like Ohio, Tennessee, Nebraska, Minnesota. You know, so it was important. And actually, our gal from Minnesota, she grew up, lived on a pig farm her whole childhood. So
So when the bank chiefs assembled that Friday evening, it was clear from the start there'd be little sympathy from the government.
Well, how much fun is it working with Dash? I can imagine he's
Secretary
you almost
and
just
Tim
at the
Geithner,
time
the
of
head
your
of New York
life
Fed,
thing.
who really
it was really
running
exciting. I feel very lucky to have
This is the problem.
him and that we sort of like ping pong and banter really well. So it's funny, just rhythmically taking
we the government
and putting
As
it
the
right
leaders
next
of Wall
to
Street
Becky
wrestled
Jr.'s
on
very
what to do about the
treasure.
Cross town at Shea Stadium, the home team, the
play a lot
Mets,
with that.
were
'Cause
trailing
often,
the
in
Atlanta
comedy,
Braves.
everything's like, like very, very fast. And
With no government bailout, two of Lehman's rivals
and
were
also
eager
have
to
some fun
smooth
with the idea that some
The
kids there are
first
different
was
rhythms
Bank
in
of
different parts of the
America,
country.
one of the largest banks in the
I'm
United
super excited
States.
about it. Tuesday nights, 8, 9:30
other
right
was a
here on
British
ABC.
outsider,
I'm hoping that it comes
Sark,
back for season 2.
keen to
Because I
expand
understand there's only
across the
6
Atlantic.
episodes. It's just not enough.
We had our eyes on. We had a good opportunity of taking a very careful look at how
You
we
left us wanting
deploy
more.
big teams
Thank you so much.
in
We hope
New
to see
York.
you again for
We
season 2.
certainly didn't know what we were going to find completely in due diligence, but I can tell you for sure we wouldn't have boarded the plane
So I start with that image.
in a situation as serious as the markets we're in if we weren't very
Black
serious.
Americans
It's
trying
very
to
clear
wrap
that this was going to be a
themselves in
seminal
the American
event
flag as they're
in the
trying
history
to
of the credit
demand
crunch.
their civil rights, their basic rights, and
If you
their
ever
rights to
imagined
citizenship.
that America's
Same
fourth
way
largest
that
investment
you
bank would
see
fall so
black
far,
people
so
holding
ceremony.
American
far?
flags, wrapping the
Its
American
earlier
flag
success
around their
was
bodies.
largely
We
down
have
to
to
one man,
show
a
that we are
larger-than-life
worthy of
figure who
citizenship
was proud to call
in our own
himself
country.
a Lehman
Without
Lifer.
lead.
In 1966,
Louder.
20-year-old Richard
Clearer.
Severin Fold Jr. arrived in New York to work as
Just
an
press
intern at Lehman Brothers. When he finished university, the bank snapped him up. Dick Fold was driven and good at what he did. Very
I
good.
wanted to start with that
Steadily
image
and
because I think
determinedly
it's an
evolved
image
and
that
grew
all
from a
Americans
traditional
can
investment
connect
bank,
to.
raising
It was an
money
image that
and
I
managing
hope
mergers and
disarms
acquisitions for
people,
clients,
into
to using
what's
borrowed
going to be
money
a very
to play the
difficult
markets
essay about
itself.
the hypocrisy of this country and the
I must tell you, having been with Lehman Brothers for 24 years, this is my only job.
My own grappling
When I started
with the idea
off,
of patriotism.
I was
that
lower than
black
low,
people have always
thinking that I would stand here today
a very difficult
to give this
relationship
address
with
to my
our
people.
moving.
I am thrilled.
ideas of
It's
patriotism.
slow
The
down.
new boss
It
had
thin
one
out.
simple
We are
ambition:
American,
But it
of
not
course.
to
disappear.
overtake his
Slavery
rivals,
ensured we have no
Merrill
other
Lynch,
country to
Morgan
claim
Stanley,
besides
and
America.
Goldman Sachs.
And yet, we have
Lehman
had to
Brothers
fight
will eventually
every
inherit the
moment of our
heritage
lives in order to be
and the
recognized.
tradition that will let us stand
So I really
alone
wanted to
and
tackle
conquer all the people that
this
stand in front of us.
conflicted
That's what I
sense
want Lehman
of what does
Brothers to be.
patriotism look like,
Basically to
who has
crush our
ownership
enemies.
over the American
Like
story,
this.
and what
Within
is the
the
role
firm,
that we as
he
black people have
godlike
played
status.
in this country.
This was a man who
And
was
so that's why I
clearly
started
in
with the
charge
flag, and that's also why I took on this very
clearly had a
idea of
vision for the
democracy.
business. Would you want to get into an argument with Dick? Absolutely
Black
not,
people are the most
unless
inconvenient
you
people
were
to the American story
totally
of
solid
exceptionalism.
on the grounds you were
By
arguing.
very virtue of us
wouldn't even
being
acknowledge
here
anybody.
is lie to the idea.
Most of the time, I would say good
exceptionalism,
morning or hello
of
to
us being
him.
the
You
freest
get a
country the
response
world has
back.
ever
It's
seen.
very almost
Because
like
the only reason
built
black
the
people
wall
are here
around
is because
himself.
of slavery. The only
The other
reason black
employees
people are
felt the
here
same way. They
is
wouldn't
because
tell you the
speak
story
to
of a
him.
northern
It was
Iraqi
also
civil
the
war total
American
silence.
founders engaged in the
which was once a
institution
key
of
base
slavery
of
and
operations
denied
for
absolute
Al-Qaeda.
liberty to
This day
one
of
fifth of the
peace
population.
it gives reason for hope.
While making the
For a free
argument
Iraq.
that they needed to break off from Britain
Tel
and
Afar is a
found
city
this
of
new
more than
nation
200,000 residents.
in order to
Roughly the population
Black
of
people
Akron.
are central to the stories of
In many ways,
America.
Tel Afar is a microcosm of Iraq. It has dozens of tribes of different ethnicity and religion.
When it came to black folks.
Most of the city residents are Sunnis of Turkish origin. Tel Afar sits just 35 miles from the Syrian border.
We have been taught to think about black
It was a strategic location for Al-Qaeda,
and we are problematic,
and their leaders are cowardly.
untrustworthy, lazy people.
Now, it's important to remember what Al-Qaeda has told us.
This is a way
Their stated
to
agenda.
justify this founding
Their goal is
hypocrisy
to drive
of
us out of
being
Iraq so they can take the
on
country
ideas
over.
of liberty and the practice of slavery.
Their goal is to overthrow modern Muslim governments throughout the
When we
region.
talk about American democracy, we don't
Their
talk
goal is
about
to use
black
Iraq
people unparalleled.
as a base from which to launch attacks against America.
This generation we call the greatest generation.
To achieve this goal, they recruited terrorists from the Middle East to come into Iraq to infiltrate the cities and to sow violence and destruction, so that no legitimate government can exercise control.
Didn't enjoy democracy back home.
And Talafar was a key way station for their operations in Iraq. After we removed Saddam Hussein in April 2003, the terrorists began moving into the city. They sought to divide Talafar's many ethnic and religious groups and forged an alliance of convenience with those who benefited from Saddam's regime and others with their own grievances. They skillfully used propaganda to foment hostility toward the coalition and the new Iraqi government. They exploited a weak economy to recruit young men to their cause. And by September 2004, the terrorists and insurgents had basically seized
This happens to a lot of women.
We recognized the situation was unacceptable. So we launched a military operation against them. After 3 days of heavy fighting, the terrorists and the insurgents fled the city. Our strategy at the time was to stay after terrorists and keep them on the run. So coalition forces kept moving, kept pursuing the enemy, routing out the terrorists in other parts of Iraq. Fortunately, in 2004, the local security forces weren't able to maintain order. So the terrorists and insurgents eventually moved back into the town. Because the terrorists threatened to murder the families of Talafar's police, its members rarely ventured out from headquarters in an old Ottoman fortress. The terrorists also took over local mosques, forcing local imams out and insisting that the terrorist message of hatred and intolerance and violence be spread from the mosques. The same happened in Talafar School, where the terrorists eliminated real education and instead indoctrinated young men in their hateful ideology. By November of 2004, 2 months after our operation to clear the city, the terrorists had returned to continue their brutal campaign of intimidation. The return of Al-Qaeda meant the innocent civilians in Talafar were in a difficult position. Just put yourself in the shoes of the citizens of Talafar as all this was happening. On one side, you hear the coalition and Iraqi forces saying they're coming to protect you. But they'd already come in once. And they had not stopped the terrorists from coming back. You worry that when the coalition goes after the terrorists, you or your family may be caught in the crossfire. And your city might be destroyed. You don't trust the police. You badly want to believe the coalition forces really can help you out, but 3 decades of Saddam's brutal rule have taught you a lesson. Don't stick your neck out for anyone. The other side, you see the terrorists and the insurgents. You know they mean business. They control the only hospital in town. You see that the mayor and other political figures are collaborating with the terrorists. You see how the people who worked as interpreters for the coalition forces are beheaded. You see a popular city councilman gunned down in front of his horrified wife and children. You see a respected sheikh and an imam kidnapped and murdered. You see the terrorists deliberately firing mortars into playgrounds and soccer fields filled with children. You see communities becoming armed enclaves. If you're in a part of Talafar that was not considered friendly, you see that the terrorists cut off your basic services like electricity and water. You and your family feel besieged, and you see no way out. The savagery of the terrorists and insurgents who control Talafar is really hard for Americans to imagine. They enforce their rule through fear and intimidation, and women and children were not spared. One grim incident, the terrorists kidnapped a young boy from the hospital and killed him. And then they booby-trapped his body and placed him along the road where his family would see him. And when the boy's father came to retrieve his son's body, he was blown up. These weren't random acts of violence. These were deliberate, highly organized attempts to maintain control and intimidation. To offer the terrorists at schools for kidnapping killing and beheading and laying IEDs. And they sent a clear message to the citizens of the city. Anyone who dares oppose their reign of terror will be murdered. As they enforce their rule by targeting civilians, they also preyed upon adolescents craving affirmation. Our troops found one Iraqi teenager who was taken from his family by the terrorists. The terrorists routinely abused him and violated his dignity. The terrorists offered him a chance to prove his innocence by holding the legs of captives as they were beheaded. When our forces interviewed this boy, he told them that his greatest aspiration was to be promoted to the killer who would behead the captives. Al-Qaeda's idea of manhood may be fanatical and perverse, but it serves two clear purposes. It helped provide recruits willing to continue atrocities, and it enforced the rule of fear. The result of this barbarity was a city where normal life had virtually ceased. Colonel H.R. McMaster of the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment described it this way. When you come into a place in the grip of Al-Qaeda, you see a ghost town. There are no children playing in the streets. Shops are closed and boarded. All construction is stopped. People stay inside, prisoners in their own homes. This is the brutal reality that Al-Qaeda wishes to impose on all the people of Iraq. The ability of Al-Qaeda and its associates to retake Talafar was an example of something we saw elsewhere. We recognized the problem. We changed our strategy. Instead of coming in and removing the terrorists and then moving on, the Iraqi government and the coalition adopted a new approach called Clear. This new approach was made possible because of the significant gains made in training large numbers of highly capable Iraqi security forces. Under this new approach, Iraqi and coalition forces would clear a city of the terrorists, leave well-trained Iraqi units behind to hold the city, and work with local leaders to build the economic and political infrastructure Iraqis need to live and breathe. One of the first tests of this new approach was Talafar. In May 2005, Colonel McMaster's unit was given responsibility for the western part of Nineveh province, where Talafar is located. And 2 months later, Iraq's national government announced that a major offensive to clear the city of the terrorists and insurgents would soon be launched. Iraqi and coalition forces first met with tribal leaders and local residents to listen to their grievances. One of the biggest complaints was the police force, which rarely ventured out of its headquarters. If it did venture, it was mostly to carry out sectarian reprisals. And so the national government set out new leaders to head the force. The new leaders set about getting rid of the bad elements and building a professional police force that all sides could have confidence in. We recognized it was important to listen to the representatives of Talafar's many ethnic and religious groups. It's an important part of helping to remove one of the leading sources of mistrust. Next, Iraqi and Army coalition forces spent weeks preparing for what they knew would be a tough military offensive. They built an 8-foot-high, 12-mile-long dirt wall to ring the city. This wall was designed to cut off any escape from terrorists trying to evade security checkpoints. Iraqi and coalition forces also built temporary housing outside the city, so that Talafar's people would have places to go when the fighting started. Before the assault on the city, Iraqi and coalition forces initiated a series of operations in surrounding towns to eliminate safe havens and make it harder for fleeing terrorists to hide. These steps took time. But as life returned to the outlying towns, these operations helped persuade the population of Talafar that Iraqis and coalition coalition forces were on their side against a common enemy, the extremists who had taken control of their city and their lives. Only after all these steps did Iraqi and coalition authorities launch Operation Restoring Rights to clear the city of the terrorists. Iraqi forces took the lead. The primary force was 10 Iraqi battalions backed by 3 coalition battalions. Many Iraqi units conducted their own anti-terrorist operations and controlled their own battle space, hunting for the enemy fighters and securing neighborhoods block by block. Throughout the operation, Iraqi and coalition forces were careful to hold their fire to let civilians pass safely out of the city. By focusing on securing the safety of Tel Avivr's population, the Iraqi and coalition forces begin to win the trust of the city's residents. This is critical to defeating the terrorists who are hiding among them. After about 2 weeks of intense activity, coalition and Iraqi forces had killed about 150 terrorists and captured 850 more. The operation uncovered weapons caches loaded with small arms ammunition and ski masks, RPG rockets, grenade, machine gun ammunition, and fuses and batteries for making IEDs. In one cache, we found an axe inscribed with the names of the victims the terrorists had beheaded. And the operation accomplished all this while protecting innocent civilians and inflicting minimal damage on the city. After the main combat operations were over, Iraqi forces moved in to hold the city. Iraqi's government deployed more than 1,000 Iraqi army soldiers and emergency police to keep order. And they were supported by a newly restored police force that would eventually grow to about 1,700 officers. As part of the new strategy, we embedded coalition forces with U.S. police and with the army units patrolling Tel Aviv to work with their Iraqi counterparts and to help them become more capable and more professional. In the weeks and months that followed, the Iraqi police built stations throughout Tel Aviv. And city residents began stepping forward to offer testimony against captured terrorists and inform soldiers about where the remaining terrorists were hiding.
I certainly understand.
Inside the old Ottoman fortress, a joint coordination center, manned by Iraqi army and Iraqi police and coalition forces, answers the many phone calls that now come in through a new tip line. As a result of the tips, when someone tries to plant an IED in Tel Aviv, it's often reported and disabled before it can do any harm. The Iraqi forces patrolling the cities are effective because they know the people, they know the language, and they know the culture. And by turning control of these cities over to capable Iraqi troops and police, give Iraqis confidence that they can determine their own destiny. And that frees up coalition forces to hunt high-value targets like Zarqawi. Recent elections show us how Iraqis respond when they know they're safe. Tel Aviv is the largest city in western Nineveh province. When the elections held in January 2005, for about 190,000 registered voters, only 32,000 people went to the polls. Only Fallujah had a lower participation rate. By the time of the October referendum on the Constitution and the December elections, Iraqi and coalition forces had secured Rafah and surrounding areas. The number of registered voters rose to about 204,000, and more than 175,000 turned out to vote in each election. More than 85% of the eligible voters in the western Nineveh province. These citizens turned out because they were determined to have a say in their nation's future. And they cast their ballots at polling stations that were guarded and secure by fellow Iraqis. One young teacher described the change this way: "What you see here is hope. Hope that Iraq will become safe and fair. I feel very confident when I see so many people voting." The confidence has been restored to the people of Tel Aviv is crucial to their efforts to rebuild their city. Immediately following the military operations, we helped the Iraqis set up humanitarian relief for the civilian population. We also set up a fund to reimburse innocent Iraqi families for damage done to their homes and businesses in the fight against the terrorists. The Iraqi government pledged $50 million to help reconstruct Tel Aviv by paving roads and rebuilding hospitals and schools and by improving infrastructure, from the electric grid to sewer and water systems. Is their city now more secure? The people of Tulafour are beginning to rebuild a better future for themselves and their children.
One person can make it.
See, if you're a resident of Tulafour today, this is what you're going to see. You see that the terrorist who once exercised brutal control over every aspect of your city has been killed, or captured, or driven out and put on the run. You see your children going to school, playing safely in the streets. You see the electricity and water service restored throughout the city. You see a police force that better reflects the ethnic and religious diversity of the communities they patrol. You see markets opening, and you hear the sound of construction equipment as buildings go up and homes are remade. In short, you see a city that is coming back to life. The success of Tulafour also shows how the three elements of our strategy in Iraq, political, security, and economic, depend on and reinforce one another.
Can you just talk to me?
By working with local leaders to address community grievances, Iraqi and coalition forces help build the political support needed to make the military operation a success. The military success against the terrorists helped give the citizens of Tulafour security, and this allowed them to vote in the elections and begin to rebuild their city. And the economic rebuilding that is beginning to take place is giving Tulafour residents a real stake in the success of a free Iraq. And as all this happens, the terrorists, those who offer nothing but destruction and death, are becoming marginalized. The strategy that worked so well in Tulafour did not emerge overnight. It came only after much trial and error. It took time to understand and adjust to the brutality of the enemy in Iraq. Yet the strategy is working. And we know it's working because the people of Tulafour are showing their gratitude for the good work that Americans have done on their behalf. A recent television report followed a guy named Captain Jesse Sellers on patrol and described him as a Pied Piper, with crowds of Iraqi children happily chanting his name as he greets locals with the words, Salam Alaikum, which means peace be with you. When the newswoman asked the local merchant what would have happened a few months earlier, he'd been seen talking with an American, his answer was clear: they'd cut off my hand. He would have beheaded me. Like thousands of others in Tulafour, this man knows the true meaning of liberation. Recently, Senator Joe Biden said that America cannot want peace for Iraqis more than they want it for themselves. I agree with that. And the story of Tulafour shows that when Iraqis can count on a basic level of safety and security, they can live together peacefully. We saw this in Tulafour after the bombing of the Golden Mosque in Samarra. Unlike other parts of Iraq, in Tulafour, the reaction was subdued, with few reports of sectarian violence. Actually, on the Friday after the attack, more than 1,000 demonstrators gathered in Tulafour to protest the attack peacefully. The terrorists have not given up in Tulafour, and they may yet succeed in exploding bombs or provoking acts of sectarian violence. The people of the city still have many challenges to overcome, including old age resentments that still create suspicion, an economy that needs to create jobs and opportunity for its young, and determined enemies who will continue trying to foment a civil war to move back in. The people of Tulafour have shown why spreading liberty and democracy is at the heart of our strategy to defeat the terrorists. The people of Tulafour have shown that Iraqis do want peace and freedom. No one.
A woman goes into houses, even in our own country.
I wish I could tell you that the progress made in Tulafour is the same in every single part of Iraq. It's not. Though most of the country has remained relatively peaceful. In some parts of Iraq, the enemy is carrying out savage acts of violence, particularly in Baghdad and the surrounding areas of Baghdad. But the progress made in bringing more Iraqi security forces online is helping to bring peace and stability to Iraqi cities. The example of Tal Afar gives me confidence in our strategy. Because in this city we see the outlines of the Iraq that we and the Iraqi people have been fighting for. A free and secure people who are getting back on their feet, who are participating in government and civic life, and who have become allies in the fight against the terrorists. I believe that as Iraqis continue to see the benefits of liberty, they will gain confidence in their future. And they will work to ensure that common purpose trumps narrow sectarianism. And by standing with them in their hour of need, we're going to help the Iraqis build a strong democracy that will be an inspiration throughout the Middle East. A democracy that will be a partner in the global war against the terrorists. The kind of progress that we and the Iraqi people are making in places like Tal Afar is not easy to capture in a short clip on the evening news. Footage of children playing or shops opening and people resuming their normal life will never be as dramatic as the footage of an IED explosion or the destruction of a mosque or soldiers and civilians being killed or injured. The enemy understands this and it explains their continued acts of violence in Iraq. Yet the progress we and the Iraqi people are making is also real. And those in a position to know best are the Iraqis themselves. One of the most eloquent is the mayor of Tal Afar, a courageous Iraqi man named Najim. Mayor Najim arrived in the city in the midst of the al-Qaeda occupation, and he knows exactly what our troops have helped accomplish. He calls our men and women in uniform Lionhearts. And in a letter to the troopers of the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment, he spoke of a friendship sealed in blood and sacrifice. As Mayor Najim had this to say to the families of our fallen, to the families of those who have given their holy blood for our land, we all bow to you in reverence to the souls of your loved ones. Their sacrifice was not in vain. They are not dead but alive, and their souls are hovering around us every second, every minute. They will not be forgotten for giving their precious lives. They have sacrificed that which is most valuable. We see them in the smile of every child and in every flower growing in the land. Let America, their families, and the world be proud of their sacrifice for humanity and life. America is proud of that sacrifice. And we're proud to have allies like Mayor Najim on our side as we fight for freedom. Yesterday, we marked the 3rd anniversary of the start of Operation Iraqi Freedom. This time, there's much discussion in our country about the removal of Saddam Hussein from power and our remaining mission in Iraq. The decision to remove Saddam Hussein was a difficult decision. The decision to remove Saddam Hussein was the right decision. Before we acted, his regime was defying UN resolutions calling for it to disarm. Was violating ceasefire agreements, was firing on British and American pilots, which were enforcing no-fly zones. Saddam Hussein was a leader. He brutalized his people, had pursued and used weapons of mass destruction, and sponsored terrorism. Today, Saddam Hussein is no longer oppressing people or threatening the world. He's being tried for his crimes by the free citizens of free Iraq, and America and our allies are safer for it.
Bottom and not in my life anymore. I'm in a big
last 3
big
years.
hair.
Oh, right.
thing,
So that, there was some time. There was an
The
investment.
fighting has been tough. The enemy we face has proven to be brutal and relentless. We're adapting our approach to reflect the hard realities of the ground. The sacrifice being made by our young men and women who wear our uniform has been heartening and inspiring. The terrorists who are setting off bombs in mosques and markets in Iraq share the same hateful ideology. is the terrorists who attacked us on September the 11th, 2001. Those who blew up the commuters in London and Madrid, those who murdered tourists in Bali, or workers in Riyadh, or guests at a wedding in Amman, Jordan. In the war on terror, we face a global enemy. And if we were not fighting this enemy in Iraq, they would not be idle. They would be plotting and trying to kill Americans across the world and within our own borders. Against this enemy, there can be no compromise. So we will fight him in Iraq. We will fight him across the world. And we will stay in the fight until the fight is won. In the long run, the best way to defeat this enemy and to assure the security of our own citizens is to spread the hope of freedom across the broader Middle East. We've seen freedom conquer evil and secure the peace before. In World War II, 3 nations came together to fight the ideology of fascism, and freedom prevailed. Today, Germany and Japan are democracies, and their allies in securing the peace. In the Cold War, freedom defeated the ideology of communism and led to a democratic movement that freed the nations of Central and Eastern Europe from Soviet domination. Today, these nations are strong allies in the war on terror. In the Middle East, freedom is once again contending with an ideology that seeks to sow anger and hatred and despair. And like fascism and communism before, the hateful ideologies that use terror will be defeated. Freedom will prevail. Freedom will prevail in the Middle East. And as the hope of freedom spreads to nations that have not known it, these countries will become allies in the cause of peace. The security of our country is directly linked to the liberty of the Iraqi people. And we will settle for nothing less than victory. Victory will come when the terrorists and Saddamists can no longer threaten Iraq's democracy. When the Iraqi security forces can provide for the safety of their citizens on their own. And when Iraq is not a safe haven for terrorists to plot new attacks against our nation. There will be more days of sacrifice and tough fighting before the victory is achieved. Yet by helping the Iraqis defeat the terrorists in their land, we bring greater security to our own. As we make progress toward victory, Iraqis will continue to take more responsibility for their own security, and fewer U.S. forces will be needed to complete the mission. It's important for the Iraqis to hear this. The United States will not abandon Iraq. We will not leave that country to the terrorists who attacked America and want to attack us again.
So I have an older sister.
We will leave Iraq, but when we do, it will be from a position of strength, not weakness.
But we just,
Americans
when we were in
have
grade
never
school, we
retreated
shared a bathroom and we
in the
would
face
get
of
ready
thugs and
together in the
assassins,
morning
and we will not
curl our
begin
hair
now.
and talk about the day of Pride and then when we were in high school, the whole thing. So the big hair.
Oh, right.
thing,
So that there was some time. There was an investment happening.
There was a lot of time. Maybe
And
an hour
hairspray.
before we went out. And hairspray. And so you had a lot of time to like talk about your day and visit and say, well, what do you think of this color? What do you think of that ribbon? What should I do here? And so we're still very close, but we live in different states. And so I just miss that, that I hadn't even thought about it, that sweet routine we had together.
Do you still, I don't know if you ever have occasion to be in a hotel room with her? Like, have you found yourself as adults falling back into that? That has happened to me with my sister, where circumstances will mean we're in the same place with the same bathroom, and all of a sudden we're getting ready together at the same time, and I have a similar kind of nostalgic flashback.
Well, I'm not sure. I can't think of a recent time where we've been in a hotel room doing that, but I will say that I have it with my daughters. So I have 2 adult daughters now, 29 and 23, and as they were coming up, I would go in their bathroom in the mornings when they're getting ready, and sometimes just sit there while they're getting ready. And a lot of times they would come in my bathroom, and of course, radicals borrow things. My sister and I borrowed things from each other, makeup, etc. But I gave them every single opportunity. So So I've had this tradition also with my own girls.
And even then, after that,
in a hotel room,
the three of us, we get together
and talk and get ready to go out.
Oh, did you never see I'm not sure. Are something that had to be addressed.
I have boys, so it's just different. It's just they're just they don't care.
Use that conventional umbrella to continue the pursuit of nuclear ambitions. And then, as it pertains to the U.S. casualties, that particular incident was, you have air defenses and the lot's coming in and you hit most of it. And we absolutely do. We have incredible air defenders. Every once in a while you might have one, unfortunately we call it a squirter that makes its way through. And in that particular case, it happened to hit a tactical operations center that was fortified, but these are powerful weapons. So we certainly will do, as I said, moments like that as we remember them and take care of them. And their families and we stick in our resolve. Make sure that
Thank you, Secretary Hegseth. I had two questions for you. First, are there currently any American boots on the ground in Iran?
No, but we're not going to go into the exercise of what we will or will not do. I think it's one of those fallacies for a long time that this department or presidents or others should tell the American people, and our enemies, by the way, here's exactly what we'll do. Here's exactly how long we'll go. Here's exactly how far we'll go. Here's what we need to do and not do. It's foolishness. So President Trump ensures that our enemies understand we'll go as far as we need to go and advance the American interest. We're not dumb about it. You don't have to roll 200,000 people in there and stay for 20 years. We've proven that you can achieve objectives that advance American interests without being foolish about it. Now, will we be bold about it? Are we willing to be decisive about it? Will we put months and months of planning into what kind of effects we want to achieve? Absolutely. But going forward, why in the world would we tell you, the enemy, anybody, what we will or will not do in pursuit of an objective? We fight to win. We fight to achieve the objectives the President of the United States has laid out, and we will do so unapologetically. Thank you.
Is there any significance to Israel carrying out the strike to kill the Ayatollah? And I wanted to know, what was your immediate reaction to finding out about his killing?
I think Israel did a great job in the conduct of that operation.
President Trump put a 4-week timeline.
Please.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned during the briefing, General Kane, that there would be additional troops sent to the region. Could you say how many troops currently are involved in this operation and how many additional troops are planned to go in this next phase?
I don't want to
Which
talk
is so interesting because you learned
that would
the question
tip the
was
enemy
what
off.
shaped you
We have
than
more
any
tactical
person.
aviation
Your answer is
flowing
your
into
experience
theater
at Microsoft,
just based
but
on
it
the
was
time it took
almost
to get it
in
out there.
opposition to that culture.
I think
You
we're
learned
just
and were
about where we
shaped by
want to
that
be in
place
terms of
as
total
you
combat
developed
capacity and
in
total
opposition
combat
to the
power
mainstream
for
culture,
Admiral
which is
Cooper.
so interesting.
One of the things, though, that
And
a
this is one
commander,
thing
he'll
I've learned
consistently
about myself
assess
over the many
the trajectory
years, is
of
that
the
I work
campaign.
against
Is he
the
on or off
NOTs,
trajectory?
the
And then make an
NOTs.
ask
Who
of
do
the
I
joint
not
force, which will
want to be?
develop
And it's true, when I go back and look at who was I friends with in college, and I would see some of these. I went to Duke University. I came from a very middle-class family in Dallas, Texas. But as I would see some of these kids who were more of wealth and of means and sort of acted like they were all that because of coming from a family with a name or wealth, I thought, I do not ever want to act like that. And if I'm ever lucky enough to be in that situation, absolutely not. I would never want to raise kids that way. So I learned over time, I work against that opposition to see it helps shape who I don't want to be.
Totally.
The last thing I'll say about this is just I also work against the knots in life, the K-N-O-T-S. So sometimes when something's really hard and gnarly and you can't figure it out and it's bothering you and stuff, that's where the biggest growth is. And I need to look at that and sort of try and relax the pressure on myself and say, this is tough, but I'm going to figure out my way through it. And that's where I've grown and learned also the most.
You know what I love about the idea of defining yourself in opposition to what or based on what you don't want to be? It's like a sculpture. It's like you're handed this big block called life and the people in it, and you're just like chipping away. You don't know what you're sculpting even. You don't know who you are actually.
But what happens is when you take away all the other stuff, you know, I don't want to be this, I don't want to be this, I don't want to be this. And then Melinda showed up. And then there you were as a result of that.
And you find out who your essence is. And a lot of those things for me were baked in high school. I went to an amazing all-girls Catholic high school and just a few nuns, but amazing lay teachers. And the values they put in us and taught us and how they taught us to learn. And that's why I first, back in the day when they were hardly anywhere, had computers. We had computers. It's where I learned I could be good in computer science, good in math. So I knew who I was when I went out in the world. And I think that I've learned this happens to a lot of women. We know who we are, but we go into college or we go into the workplace or we go into that environment and people start to chip away at us and say, you can't be that, you can't do that. And at least for me, I sort of built up almost forgetting who I was in my core and my essence. But as I would see these different groups, I could remember not that, not that, not that. And so maybe to your point, I was able to chisel my way back to who I am and my essence. And it was always there, and I always held on to it. I didn't let go of it, but I had to see other things to go, not that.
Okay. Let's move. We're moving. Last one in this round. Memory still. 1, 2, or 3.
I'll go for 1.
Okay. What's a piece of advice you were smart to ignore?
My freshman advisor, who was also the college counselor for our all-girls school, I won't say her name, when I went in to start talking to her about colleges and where I wanted to go and what my dreams were, and she said, no, those aren't for you. You know, when I said things like Notre Dame and Stanford or Duke, no. I mean, maybe we should consider, maybe like a local community college, or maybe we should think about Texas Tech. And again, talk about that oppositional, so I can also rise up. Sometimes I have to have something to work against. And I left, and I was so angry. I was like, she sees me like that? Who is she to see me like that? Are you kidding? I'm going to show her. And I went back. Once she said that, I went back and looked at the transcripts of the girls from our school who'd preceded me, and I realized the only ones who ever got into the colleges I wanted to get into were the valedictorians. And I was like, oh boy, I've got to be valedictorian.
Is that right?
And so I had to then get A's in all my classes, even the honors. So I put a lot of pressure on myself. But ultimately, I went to Duke, and I had at a time when they had two brand new computer labs. I had very good classes. It ended up being fantastic.
Did you send a little letter to that high school guidance counselor being like, greetings from Duke University, period, love Melinda?
She knew where I ended up. And luckily, she was the only one that saw me that way. Like, my math teacher saw the potential, and boy, was my math teacher phenomenal for me, or my English teacher. And again, I say this often to people now. I've seen, using my own experience, the difference one person can make in someone else's life.
And people have to remember that, because it's not just the positive stuff you say that can have a positive impact. It's the negative stuff that might eat out of you. It can have a detrimental effect on the kids, the young people in your care or under your tutelage.
Absolutely. And, there's this saying, I think, in the meditation and spiritual community that, our brains are like Teflon and Velcro, that the beautiful things people say or the inspiring things, they're kind of like Teflon. If you get a compliment, you kind of like let it go. But the Velcro is like the sticky ones, the ones that aren't so nice, those stick, and you got to work through those, right? And I certainly have some of those in my life too.
I want to pull back from the game and talk about Pivotal Ventures, which is your foundation that works on social issues for women, including women's health. Can you just talk to me a little bit about how you focus there? Because you, Melinda French Gates, could have focused your money and effort and bandwidth anywhere.
Well, I was lucky enough to form the Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I traveled for
it was worse than we had feared. And while the credit markets basically shut down 2 days later on Wednesday, the real depth of the damage was not seen for weeks or even months. As I describe it, the housing market damaged our financial system, which then damaged our economy. So this crisis is what caused the severe recession that we're in right now.
We had a deluge of communication. In fact, I had something in the order of 5,000 emails that day. Our switchboard at the firm was blocked, the switchboard at Bank Street was blocked. There was a massive communications problem because everybody wanted an answer. They wanted it immediately. I've never experienced that before, and I'm sure I'll never experience that again.
We were getting calls from not just banks and commercial banks, we were getting calls from large American businesses, blue chip businesses saying they couldn't fund themselves. They couldn't make their payroll. They couldn't fund their inventory. These are some of the best American companies that have very little to do with financial markets, saying they can't access the basic funding they need to pay their employees. The intensity of this period was unlike anything we'd seen before.
By the end of Monday's trading, $700 billion had been wiped off the global stock markets. The Dow Jones, the leading stock exchange index, had plummeted 500 points. It was the biggest fall in a day since 9/11. Money markets around the world froze up because the collapse of Lehman destroyed the confidence banks need to lend to each other.
And over the 4-week period, the 28 days between the failure of Lehman Brothers and the announcement of recapitalization packages for banks around the world in October, there was an extraordinary loss of confidence, a panic, I would call it.
Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope you all had an enjoyable weekend.
The fall of Lehman Brothers brought the global financial system to its knees. And still the debate goes on. Should the U.S. Treasury have stepped in to save the bank?
I never once considered that it was appropriate to put taxpayer money on the line in resolving Lehman Brothers.
Historians will debate for years about whether, if the U.S. government had rescued Lehman Brothers, whether there would have been a greater degree of financial stability. My own view is that the U.S. government had to draw a line in the sand, not least to make everyone in the world, and world governments and central banks, focus on the fact that there was a massive problem.
I believe that allowing Lehman Brothers to go bankrupt was a tremendous mistake. The amount of money it would have taken, 20 billion, 30 billion, compared to the destruction in value that followed the Lehman bankruptcy and the complete shutdown of the credit markets. The billions and billions and billions of losses that were experienced in the market subsequent.
Now, when the Federal Reserve lends money, they can loan money to financial institutions. The law requires the Fed to be secured so that they're not taking much risk. And so in the case of Bear Stearns, they lent $30 billion against a pool of mortgages. In the case of Lehman Brothers, the question is, what assets could they lend against?
I think the tragic thing for the United States was that we came into this crisis without an adequate set of tools to withstand, protect the economy from the acute stress you saw in the financial system. The constraints we faced in Lehman were one example of those kind of constraints. We should not have been in that position, and that's why it's so important that we move more quickly now. And we're moving very, very quickly. You know, we're still in the midst of a pretty severe economic crisis globally, and yet we're going to move with comprehensive regulatory reforms while we're still trying to get recovery back on track. That's a symptom of the importance we attach to trying to put in place reform. And it was it was something that should not have happened.
2 days after the bankruptcy, Barclays Bank got what it wanted all along. It sealed a deal to buy the bulk of Lehman's North American assets for $1.75 billion. It was a bargain, much less than they would have paid had the bank been solvent.
I think all of us would say this is something that we never expected, that we could actually combine with the U.S. bulge bracket firm. I don't use the word transformational lightly. This transaction was transformational.
But for many backroom staff, there was no happy ending.
2 weeks after that, I got a letter.
Nothing announce it. Nothing finish. It just continue.